All right, so welcome back to the AM show. Time for us to bring you what the papers are reporting today. And I mean, I have a lot of them here today. I have the Delhi Guide newspaper. I have the Delhi Analyst, the Independent, the Custodian is also here. We have the Chronicle, the Economy Times. We have the New Crusading Guide, the Finder, and the Ghanaian Publisher, a lot of them here. Well, like I told you earlier, our guest for the review is the Executive Director for Media Foundation for West Africa, Suleimana Brahima. And I'm grateful for joining us. Good morning to you. Okay, all right then. So let's go through the papers and then see. Now, the Finder newspaper says, Cecilia Dapa demands retraction, but alleged money is in a bank account. 1.9 million cedis paid to 95 ghost. Bono Regional Health Directorate accused of inserting the names of Sinyain Regional Hospital's electronic payment voucher. I can garner 54% of vote to defeat Mahama. That's according to Alan. And global central banks post losses on reserves in 2022. No quick recovery seen. That story is on page 5. Leading ladies lots 3 Ghanaian women to watch in banking and finance in Africa. Okay, all right. It comes with a photograph of Efe Amoa, Audrey Abaka, Sheila Restberg, and Yawa Hansen Kwao. Okay, all right. So that is the Finder newspaper. Let me look at the back page. Edin Ketia is a role model, that's according to Arteta. Well, so that's one for the Ghanaian there. Joseph Paul Amwa leads Ghana's contingent for 2023 World Athletics Championship. Okay. And Anthony Joshua knocks out Hellenius in 7th round. So Nigerian brother Anthony Joshua making us proud there, defeating Hellenius to retain his title. Well, Delhi Guide newspaper, it says IMF clears BoG over 60 billion cedis loss. I'm the best candidate to beat Mahama. That's according to Alan Chairman Ting. And man kills Pal over dog meat. Oh, really? Okay. Cocoa Road project will be completed according to Cocoa Board. That's it. So we'll delve deeper into the papers. Now, Delhi Analyst says ongoing Cocoa Road project will be completed. Okay, so that's it there. Launch of EUW students chapter of GJA. GJA will continue to explore opportunities to enhance capacity of members. Okay, so that's one is coming from GJA there. Renaming UG after JB Dankwa may happen one day, according to Ekofuado. Well, let me welcome our guest for today, Mr. Suleimana Brahima. Good morning to you and thanks so much for joining us.
Morning and thank you for having me.
Okay. Now, let's start from the Daily Guide newspaper. It says IMF clears BoG over 60 billion loss. I'm the best candidate to beat Mahama. That's according to Alan. Cocoa Road project to be completed. That's according to Cocoa. Now, the IMF story is on page 3 of the Daily Guide newspaper. It says the International Monetary Fund, IMF, has come to the aid of the Bank of Ghana, absolving it from accusation of mismanagement as a result of the loss of 60 billion cedis. The Bretton Woods institution believes accusation of mismanagement on the part of the central bank is far-fetched and corroborated the BoG's explanation on how the negative equity came about. It noted that a BoG participated in the domestic debt exchange program to share some of the burden the DDE placed on government debt holders, along with banks, other financial institutions, pension funds, and individuals. Mr. Brahma, let's start from this point. The IMF is trying to say that, well, the BoG is not to be held responsible for that 60 billion cedis loss. What's your thought on it?
Well, some of these comments from these external actors sometimes can be quite problematic. And then therefore one wonders sometimes whether these institutions truly represent the interest of member states, or basically it's about the interest of their institutions. The IMF really looked on right from the beginning when this government was doing what people call smart accounting. At some point when the matter even came up through Fact Check Ghana to indicate that, look, the government of Ghana was presenting different figures to the Parliament of Ghana and different figures to the IMF. The same IMF then came out to say, oh, well, yes, but we have agreed to disagree with government in terms of how the figures are presented. So one wonders at that point how the IMF said, oh, well, the government of Ghana says this and we are saying, no, that cannot be, but we have agreed to disagree as a matter of principle. Essentially what the IMF is then saying here is that, oh, well, the losses incurred by the Bank of Ghana is real, but it is because they needed to incur those losses in order to meet our conditionalities for the bailout that we are giving to your government. And so basically, diplomatically, that is how they would put it. But the truth is that it was a condition for the BoG to go through in order for the government of Ghana to meet the requirements of the IMF, bailout that we are currently under. So it's quite it doesn't still solve our problem. For the first time that I am hearing, at least maybe since my adult life, that the central bank, the Bank of Ghana, has made losses. And I asked if the other banks made losses and they were collapsed and consolidated into consolidated bank, and the same people who did that are the ones in charge of the Bank of Ghana, why should they be there? If we had the opportunity to also collapse the Bank of Ghana and merge it into another bank, perhaps that is what we would do. But
well, they still say that they are able to provide their supervisory role, and as a central bank, that's essential. So once they are able to do that, then they can still go ahead and do what they do.
Oh yeah, when I heard that there was an IMF person sitting at the Bank of Ghana, or was it the Ministry of Finance, I told myself, well, this is what we needed, because quite clearly, the people in charge of our economy had shown that they were really incompetent, inefficient, and unable to manage our affairs. And at this stage, basically what we need is to have an external person come in to support the management of our economy. And so I'm just hoping that now that we have somebody from the IMF, the World Bank, and at some point I even read that there was somebody from also the US, perhaps taking charge, maybe things will begin to get better, because from all indications, the people who have been in charge of our economy are not the ones who can manage the economy.
So we are not our own managers in the end then?
Well, we've proven that at this stage, we've proven that we are unable to manage our own affairs, and therefore having these people in may be the way to go.
Is that the only way to turn around the fortunes of the central bank, or there's another way that as a country we need to approach holistically?
Well, you see, the central bank governor is appointed by someone. And if that person is overseeing the mess that is going on and are not prepared to get rid of the folks there, and right from the Ministry of Finance, then what can we do? Essentially, we've gotten ourselves to a space where we say, look, since your man is not ready to let these people go, then the only way is to have ourselves imposed on you, so that things will go well. So at the end of the day, it all comes down again to the doorsteps of the president, and of course the vice president. The vice president has been the chairman of the economic management team since 2017, and this is how far he has brought us. In fact, at some point he himself was proud to introduce the members of the economic management team to the people of Ghana, and this is how far the Bawumia management team has brought the nation. So it's up to the vice president as chairman of the economic management team, and the president as the overall person who does the appointments, to let the people know that they failed, and therefore all we can have is to have these external people impose themselves on us to help us and manage our economy.
All right. I'm grateful to you. Cocoa Board is also promising completion of Cocoa Road. I mean, with what we've seen in the past and how things are running, when institutions like Cocoa Board come out to say this, does it inspire any hope in you that indeed they will be able to accomplish what they are talking about?
Well, since last week, I read about, and I was wondering whether that is really the truth, that the CEO of Cocoa Board has said that the IMF and the European Union has instructed that Cocoa Board should not continue with the construction of cocoa roads. And so I was asking myself, is it the CEO and the board of Cocoa Board that is in charge of what Cocoa Board would do? Or Cocoa Board has also now come under the management of the IMF and the European Union, said that these two institutions have instructed that Cocoa Board should stop or cease the construction of cocoa roads. That was something that was quite surprising and shocking to me. The other point really is that, look, Ghana over the years when we were in basic schools, secondary school, up to today, cocoa has continued to be a significant backbone for our economy and the nation's development. Yet, I grew up in a cocoa growing area, in a real village, where the farmers themselves would, from year to year, be the ones clearing the feeder road, struggling to maintain it, so that trucks that would convey the cocoa from those villages will be able to come and convey the cocoa. And that is after the farmers have sold their cocoa. So they could say, well, we've done our part. But they were the ones, and in fact, I would say that during childhood, I was involved in doing those things. And up to today, we're still talking about cocoa roads. So the people who are struggling, the farmers who are struggling, doing all these things, after selling their cocoa, have to be concerned about, how the cocoa gets carted away to the cities and then eventually for export. I think that is a really, really damning thing to be happening to our nation. Apart from that, these are areas where pregnant women, when there are complications, even a motorable road for a motorbike to carry them to the nearby hospital is an issue. And so for me, it comes down to this whole question where we say, people are cutting down cocoa farms for galamsey. I believe farmers will begin to ask themselves, we've done this for our parents were doing it, our grandparents were doing it, we are doing it, and this is where we are. Even a motorable road to be able to also commute to the cities is a problem. So what is the point in continuing to do cocoa when the CEO of Cocoa Board and the people are enjoying flying first class and so on? I mean, why should we continue to endure this pain? So I think as a country, we really are in a mess, in a significant mess, and I don't know how we come out of it.
Okay. Now, he was speaking at the symposium of the Cocoa Clinic, and he said this policy shift stems from negotiations with the European Union and the International Monetary Fund. Now, both entities, according to the story I'm reading, he said, questioning Cocoa Board's involvement in road construction, urging a focus on core functions. Quote, the EU sent a team last year to do due diligence on sustainable production, and when they came, they wanted to know why Cocoa Board was involved in cocoa road construction, because it is not a core business of Cocoa Board. And they insisted that we take that venture out of our equation and not, and of course, the IMF is also saying the same thing. They say that we can continue with what we are currently constructing and not start new ones, unquote, by Mr. Boyne said. Now, so it looks like the two, international organizations are saying that because this is not part of your core mandate, focus on your core mandate, but complete what you are doing. But when you finish these ones, you don't have to start a new one. Does it look like we are being then directed on what we could do as a country, as a sovereign country, when we can decide to do what we can with our resources?
Well, you see, I think when you are sick, almost everyone prescribes a different medication to you, and literally you begin to have multiple doctors. Our country today is sick, and therefore we have all manner of institutions then directing us and prescribing what we should do. Otherwise, the question you ask is, if the construction of cocoa rows isn't part of the core mandate of the Ghana Cocoa Board, you ask yourself, is the management of our cocoa sector part of the core mandate of the EU or the IMF? Why should it be their business to determine how we manage our cocoa sector? Is that part of their core business? But like I said, our country is in a mess, and these institutions would come in ways as to suggest to us or direct us how they think we should go by our affairs. And I am quite surprised that the CEO of Cocoa Board wouldn't be ashamed to say these things publicly. Cocoa, I mean, something that has been the major supporter of our economy over the years. And today we are being told that, look, even as it is farmers who are making us who we are, as a country, enjoying all the things that perhaps we are enjoying as a country over the years, farmers must continue to live in areas that cannot be reached and yet continue to produce the cocoa for us so that the CEO and others can continue to enjoy fat salaries, the 70,000 and plus cedis, fly first class, and then have cocoa board staff fly in first class and business class and so on, whilst our farmers must continue to endure in areas where even a bicycle cannot reach. This is a problem. And I think that the earlier we address this as a nation, the better. If we had not put ourselves in this kind of mess, economic mess, I don't think that the EU will be concerned about how Cocoa Board is managing its own affairs. And I don't think that the IMF would have been concerned. Cocoa rows construction started not today. Why is it today that we are being told that it is not part of the core mandate of Cocoa Board? Okay. It's all because, we've run our country down, and therefore we are getting prescriptions all over.
Okay. I don't know if this is, I feel this alone, but let me ask you, does it feel normal to you that after so many years of cultivating and exporting cocoa, we still go out to borrow before we can buy cocoa?
Well, that's a question that a friend has always raised, that why is it that every year we have to go for what is called cocoa syndication loan before we are able to buy and export our cocoa? It's almost like a businessman saying that, look, I've bought these products, I'm selling them, but anytime my stocks run out, I have to go for a bank loan in order to restock. So you ask yourself, hey, why are you not using your profits to do that? And as a country, I think it is one of the tragedies that we've had. And it is not just under this government. Almost every government has had to resort to the same mechanism. Every year we borrow, buy. Every year we borrow and buy. And then we ask ourselves, so where is the profit? Why can't we as a nation say, look, over a period of 5 years, we will stop this cocoa syndication loan business and begin to use our own reserves from our cocoa money to purchase cocoa, so that at least gradually we'll get to a point where we will not have to resort to loans. And again, you have managers of our country who really come to power basically to loot our monies, basically to make themselves wealthy, rather than focusing on the development of the country. And once that is the situation, we will continue to be in this mode.
Wow. All right, let's move to the final newspaper. Let me take you to page 2. It says 1.9 million Ghana cedis paid to 95 ghosts. The story says, and it's by Elvis Darko in Accra, in a shocking revelation, the Auditor General has discovered that 95% unknown names have been paid salaries totaling 1.9 million cedis between January and December 2021. What is even more baffling is that these unknown names were validated as staff of Sunyayin Regional Hospital in the Bono region and paid salaries every month. However, when staff of the Auditor General's department conducted a head count of personnel of the hospital, the 95 were nowhere to be found. Now, when questioned, the human resource manager of Sunyani Regional Hospital, Mr. Nicholas Opong, explained that the officers were placed on the hospital's electronic payment voucher by the Bono Regional Health Directorate and that the officers were unknown to the hospital. The Auditor General therefore instructed the Director General of the Ghana Health Service to ensure that the Regional Health Director and the Medical Director recover the amount of 1.9 million cedis with interest at the prevailing Bank of Ghana rate from the affected persons. Why are we, and I love your response. Why do we still talk about this? After all these years of, Auditor General finding these and asking us to go after these people, why does it still happen?
Well, look, a year from now, we'll be talking about the same thing, and this money that is said to have gone to persons who are not staff of the hospital, the money will not be recovered. I mean, for the years, it's been like this. For all you know, some party foot soldiers had to, be made to get something, as they say, local fuel, and something was done. We'll talk about it this way, nothing will happen. Last year, I believe we had stories like this. Nothing has happened. Again, that shows how unserious we are as a country. And I mean, you can only keep lamenting because the stories will keep coming. This is just, this is 1.9 million. I'm sure billions have been lost elsewhere. And yet all we do will be to talk about it. The media will report it, and nothing will happen. We are in an era where really nothing seems scary anymore. Even if it was 1.9 billion, people would say, look, this thing, they will keep happening because that is the system that we are in. We don't have leadership that is really and honestly committed to the fight against corruption. And once the fight against corruption has been reduced to rhetoric, as we have it, these matters will keep coming up, and they are no longer surprising, and people will not find them shocking. In fact, very soon people will say, if it's 1.9 million, they'll say, oh, nah, this one is nothing, And so, we are talking about millions of money allegedly stolen from a minister's house. And that those monies, when put together, far exceeds this amount of money. And so people are like, Charlie, this one, people very soon see these things as normal.
But is it not worrying and quite fearful that we are getting close to that juncture when we sort of see these things as normal?
Well, that's really, as I said, the tragedy that we find ourselves in. And people are becoming agitated, people are getting anxious, people are getting frustrated. Over the weekend, I saw a video in which some young men were tamping the head of I think it's the statue,
the bust of the president's father.
Yes, someone who is supposed to be Edward Akufo-Addo, the father of the current president. And I was telling someone, look, this is how people can express their frustrations. And the earlier we start, we get to address these issues, the better for all of us as a country. We shouldn't wait for people to continue with this kind of frustration and to allow the frustrations to boil. Because when it explodes, we may not be able to contain the situation. And our leaders must set up and begin to do things that would, begin to rebuild confidence in our nation, that the people we elected were elected to lead and not elected to loot. Otherwise, one day we would all be in trouble.
Oh, interesting. Well, on the same paper, they are talking about ECOWAS defense meeting on Niger being postponed. A planned meeting by West African chiefs of defense staff to discuss the coup in Niger has been postponed at short notice. The talks called by the regional bloc ECOWAS had been expected to take place in Ghana's capital, Accra, on Saturday. No reason was given for the delay. On Thursday, West African leaders ordered a standby military force to be activated in readiness to restore civilian rule in Niger. The takeover in Niger, led by soldiers belonging to the Presidential Guard, is just the latest in a string of coups that have taken place in recent years. Do you sometimes feel worried about what's happening in Niger? And what do you think is the best way that ECOWAS and Africa can really deal with this rising trend of coups?
Well, of course, the development in Niger is worrying, and it's also because it adds to Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea.
Yeah.
And so the increasing coup d'etats is something that certainly must be worrying to everyone. We all love democracy. We all believe that democracy is the best form of governance. That is, if it is made to be a true democracy. I think that there are a number of questions to be asked in relation to the ECOWAS's the strategies or measures that the ECOWAS is talking about. The first question would be, why Niger? Mali happened. ECOWAS didn't adopt what it is talking about in terms of military intervention. Burkina happened. ECOWAS basically did sanctions, condemnations, and so on. Guinea happened. ECOWAS did sanctions, condemnations, and all. Then Niger happens. Then they say we would intervene militarily and reinstall the president, into power. So the question to ask is it that when they finish Niger, then they will come to Burkina and then intervene militarily and then bring back the deposed president, and then they will go to Guinea and do the same thing and bring back Alpha Condé? Or what are they really talking about? Because people will ask, why Niger? Is it because, the military of Niger can be easily conquered? Otherwise, why Niger? That is the first point. The second point is that is ECOWAS really, and these member countries, are they really ready for the humanitarian consequences of a military intervention? Are we ready to deal with the massive humanitarian consequences that would be the consequence of a military intervention? I doubt we will be able to do that. The other point is that, do we as individual nations have the resources to commit to this mission? Now we're talking about Ghana. Ghana would contribute, certainly, and Ghana would be one of the major contributors if ECOWAS were to do the military intervention in Niger. Do we have the resources? A country under IMF, a country whose central bank and finance ministry is now being supervised by external actors. Do we have the resources? I doubt that we'll be able to do that. The other point for me is it the case that when we intervene in Niger and the preventive measures that need to be put in place are not put in place, and there is another coup d'etat in another country, are we going to intervene with the military? And then if there is another one, are we going to intervene? I doubt the military intervention is something that would work. What ECOWAS has to do, first of all, is to immediately adopt measures to prevent any further coup d'etats in any of the other member states.
Okay.
We shouldn't assume that Niger is the last, because the conditions that foment these coup d'etats are all over. The Niger coup d'etat, for me, was a matter of when and not if it was going to happen, because the signs were so clear, and yet ECOWAS was quiet. In Guinea, Alpha Condé's regime killed several people who were basically defending democracy by going on the streets to protest against the change of the constitution for Alpha Condé to go for a third term. When the people were being killed for defending democracy, nobody talked. Then when Alpha Condé succeeded in changing the constitution in an undemocratic fashion and prolonged himself in power, and he was ousted, then we're being told that, democracy was being undermined. So when citizens are defending democracy, it doesn't matter. And then when the leaders abuse the democratic process to stay in power and they are removed, is that when we then see that democracy is being undermined? So ECOWAS, I believe, has to take steps to prevent any further coup d'etats from happening.
Okay.
By telling leaders telling themselves the truth that, look, democracy is not just about leaders being elected. Democracy is about human rights. Democracy is about freedom of expression. Democracy is about empowering the people. Democracy is about getting people have their basic needs. Democracy is about good leadership. Until these things are done, we can just say that, yes, we are in a democracy because leaders are elected, and yet the threat of coup d'etats would remain. On Niger, on Mali, on Burkina Faso, the first thing we have to do is to prove to the citizens of these countries that those countries that are under democratic rule, the citizens are better, the countries are better, and citizens' human rights are better. So that at least the democracy we're talking about will become attractive to the citizens of these people.
Okay.
By the end of the day, governance is about the citizens of the people.
Okay, all right. So that's it today. But let me take you to the back page of the Chronicle newspaper. It says, government retooling over 200 labs for STEM education. Now, the government of Ghana, through the Ministry of Education, is retooling over 200 senior science laboratories in existing senior high schools across the country in a major push to enhance science education in the country. This comes as part of Ghana's effort to reposition Ghana's education to produce a critical mass of assertive and empowered Ghanaian students equipped with the essential skills for socio-economic transformation, the Ministry of Education has said. The ministry, with a significant step towards fostering a conducive learning environment for future scientists and innovators, is also spearheading the construction of new science labs in existing schools and the model STEM schools. This initiative is set to transform the landscape of science education in Ghana and align the country's education in the areas of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I guess we're on the right track, right?
Yeah, STEM around the world is now being prioritized because that's the future of nations. And so it's great to see that in our country, we are also focusing on those same areas of science, technology, engineering and mathematics. And I believe that if we do it and do it well, we would also become competitive in the world. And that is where we have to go. So it's a positive thing that we are doing.
Okay. I guess that, we can check on the schools and see. I'm told that for completed schools, we have Lashibi School, we have Ebri Girls High School, Wesley Girls School first, Wesley Girls School second, Aflao, Apesia, Anglican School New Block, Bosumche first, Anglican School Old Block, Accra Academy, Equiapeman Senior High School, St. James Senior High School, Kumasi Senior High School, and St. Louis Senior High School first and second as well. So these are the places where these science labs have been completed. But I'll let us wrap on I'll beat Mahama hands down. That's according to Alan. Is this something you foresee happening?
Oh, well, I really cannot predict what's going to happen in the 2024 elections. And we, as potential candidates, of course, the NDC has President Mahama as their candidate, and therefore, whoever emerges from the MPP will be contesting Mahama. And, it is within the rights of any of the potential candidates to say they would be the best person to be able to beat President Mahama. Of course, the MPP has the track record of President Akufo-Addo over the last 7 years, and therefore by next year, the 8th year, to deal with. And how they defend that record is up to them. That's all that I can say.
Okay. It looks as though you feel that, they cannot defend, these records.
Well, the last time the president himself was upbeat about why the folks who are running to become the party's flag bearer were attacking the record of their own government. And I was surprised that the president was surprised, because certainly with what has happened over the last 7 years, I don't know how anyone is going to run successfully on this record to be able to win an election. Okay. And so for me, it's not surprising that these candidates would say, look, I mean, I will be different. The vice president himself has had to say that I will have my own vision. When people would expect that, look, he would say, myself and President Akufo-Addo over the last 7 years has had some bold vision for this country, and I expect to continue. Okay. And so I am not surprised that they are now running away from their track record, and perhaps that's the best thing to do.
Suleiman Ibrahim, I'm grateful to you for joining us here on the News Review segment of the AM Show.
Thank you.
He is the Executive Director for the Media Foundation for West Africa. I'm grateful to him for spending his time with us this morning. And thanks to you too for joining us. We'll take a quick break. We have more for you here on the AM Show. Stay with us.